Hello, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the PSU 365 podcast, the Penn State Athletics podcast. My name is Dylan Count Crowley, editor of Happy Valley Insider, covering all things Penn State. I'm joined by a special guest today, the voice of Bowling Green Falcons football, Todd Walker. Todd, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Dylan. Good to be with you, and looking forward to our trip to State College and hopefully a successful season for BGSU football.
BGSU coming off a big win last week against Fordham, 41-17, to open up the season. I guess first, what were your takeaways from that win for the Falcons last week?
Well, it was really impressive. They started out very strong, took the opening kickoff of the season back for a touchdown, which, as far as we know, has never happened in Bowling Green history before. And really, they were up 27-0 almost immediately. And kickoff return, touchdown, stop, touchdown, stop, touchdown, stop, touchdown. And then it sort of a boredom kind of took over the game. They didn't play that great the rest of the way, but they came out and just set the tone early, like you want to do when you're the favorite, like Penn State will want to do Saturday. Come out and establish a dominance right away, and then sort of cruise to victory, and that's what they did.
This is a Bowling Green team that is, pretty familiar with facing now Power Four opponents. Last year they faced three Power Four opponents. A trip to the Big House to face Michigan, went down to Bobby Dodd in Atlanta, knocked off Georgia Tech, and then faced Minnesota in the Quick Lane Bowl. A close loss in that one. This is certainly not a Falcons team under head coach Scott Loeffler that is afraid of a challenge, it seems.
No, not at all. It's life in the MAC. There are some schools that play even three payday games, if you want to call them that.
Yep.
So for Bowling Green, it's pretty well standard procedure. You'll play a couple of big conference schools. You mentioned Michigan last year, and Coach Leffler, who played and coached at Michigan, compares this Penn State team to what his team saw last year in Ann Arbor, especially defensively. In fact, he thought maybe this defense in the long run could be better than the one Michigan had last year. So for Coach, it's nothing new. He's been to Happy Valley 7 previous times. He told me that he gets 8 from his days at Michigan. For most of the folks with Bowling Green, it'll be their first trip in quite a while. But BG does have a bit of a track record of pulling upsets against the big conference teams, but never anybody on the stature of Penn State, a team ranked in the top 10 at the time. So this would certainly be historic if they could get that done. But yeah, I think the intimidation factor isn't there as much, and I think some of that also is dissipated with more and more transfers around college football. Bowling Green's brought in guys that have played at big colleges, big conference schools, so it's not as prevalent. Our starting quarterback played in the SEC, our starting wide receiver also. So I think some of that is lessened, but I'm sure they're trying to get prepared for the noise and the intimidation that they'll see at Beaver Stadium on Saturday.
Uh, Absolutely. This Falcons team is coming off their first season above 500, I think, since 2015 last year, going 7-6. Scott Leffler has the program, it looks like, going in the right direction. What are the expectations surrounding this program coming into this season? I know in the coaches poll they finished third with Northern Illinois behind Miami of Ohio and Toledo. Uh, if I'm guessing, that probably is one of the higher preseason poll rankings that the Falcons have had in recent memory.
Yeah, this is the first time really since 13, 14, 15, 16, the Falcons have been legitimately talked about as a contender. They won the conference in 2013, 2015. 2016, they were sort of ranked in the mix in the preseason, although that turned out to be erroneous. But yeah, this is the first time they're truly contenders since that 2015 season. And it just so happens their two biggest rivals are the teams ahead of them in that preseason ranking, Miami and Toledo. So those will be huge games. Yeah, the program's definitely on the ascension. When Coach took over in 2019, things were in quite a shambles, as happens many times when you fire a coach and bring in a new one. It's because things aren't going well. So then the whole COVID and NIL and expanded eligibility and transfer portal just completely blew up the rebuilding plan. Had to retool it on the fly, so maybe it's taken a year or two longer to truly get to a contender status. But the last two teams they've had have shown the ability, when things are going well, to be amongst the best teams in the league. This year, they're just hoping to string those performances together more consistently. And I think the reason they're hopeful they can do that is they feel like they finally have the offensive line where it needs to be. There's veterans at every spot. They're capable, solid, very good veterans, all conference caliber guys. So that's always been the last thing to get done, and they hope they're there now.
Absolutely. Looking at this offense for the Falcons, obviously you mentioned the quarterback Connor Bazelak, former Missouri quarterback, also spent some time at Indiana. His second season with Bowling Green, had a quality 2023 season. But the names that pop out to me offensively are the running back Terrion Stewart and the tight end Harold Fannin Jr. What can you tell our listeners about those two?
Terrion is quite spectacular. He is, I guess you could describe him as a fire plug or a bowling ball as far as his physical look. He's a little undersized in the height category, but he is big and strong and fast, and he breaks tackles at maybe the highest clip in the country. In fact, last year, a lot of those type statistics, he was the leader in the nation. He had a leg injury last year that ended his season, but he looked good this past week in the opener, had a 73-yard touchdown run, and looked like himself. He is very difficult to bring down. That will be a key for Penn State. You saw them. The rush defense has been the best in the nation last year, and last week against West Virginia, they really rallied to the football, and that'll be key whenever the ball's handed to Terrion. And then Harold Fannin, he's a next-level talent as well. Big, fast, athletic tight end. He's the next NFL tight end out of Bowling Green. We've had a couple of guys that of late from Coach Leffler's run be in the NFL. Clint Morris is still with the Bills, in fact. So now he knows what he's doing with that spot. Both those guys are next-level type talents that the defense has to key on, and I'm sure they will be come Saturday.
Talking about defense under Coach Leffler, the development of the Bowling Green defense has been impressive. You look at his first year there in 2019, the Falcons allowed 38.6 points per game, 45 points in that shortened 2020 season. And now last year, that number was down to 24 points per game. What has been the defensive identity for the Falcons under Coach Leffler, and what do you think has been the key to that development over the last 5 years heading into this season?
I think the identity has been they're opportunistic, and they've been able to pressure the quarterback. I'm a little bit leery of this year's defense. I don't know if they really have that elite pass rusher they've had past several years. Cassius Howell transferred to Texas A&M. Demetrius Hardeman that did not play last week. He's been there. He was really a premier pass rusher until he was injured last year. I don't know if they've got a guy that really scares you as a pass rusher. But the thing about the defense that's allowed us to come along, they've built up the defensive line. Again, they feel like they've got too deep at all the spots. They've got veterans there. And that is pretty much all homegrown. Almost all those guys started at Bowling Green. Have paid their dues and gotten stronger and bigger to be where they are. And I guess the other thing is the secondary has not always come together, either because of injury or departures or whatever. So I think that's an area to keep an eye on this year. The secondary has a chance to be better overall than they have been in the past. So I think this defense has a chance to be solid. I'm worried about where they find a consistent pass rush without blitzing, but there are veterans all throughout the defense, a couple of transfers that will shore things up. C.J. Brown at safety, for instance, a member of the MAC title team at NIU, was all conference player. He's at Bowling Green now, so that's a big addition. I think the defense will be a very representative, solid group. I'm not sure they can match last year when they led the nation in takeaways, for instance. I don't know that they're going to be able to do that, but I'm encouraged by where they are just overall defensively with their scheme and their personnel. The defense will certainly not be a weakness by any stretch. I just still not convinced they can be quite as disruptive as last year.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to watch, especially looking at the stats from last week. Allowed 182 yards to Fordham on the ground. Um, Obviously, as you said, that game kind of got into a more of a, no, like better word, boring second half there. Not sure if that played an impact, but 182 rushing yards allowed to Fordham, going up against one of the better running back duos in the country this week in Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. That'll be an interesting matchup to watch. Um, Other than that, I think that's all I got for you, Todd, today. Thanks for jumping on here on the podcast and talking some Bowling Green football with us. And I look forward to seeing you on Saturday at Beaver Stadium on what should be a beautiful day for football and hopefully a good game.
Yeah, the other two times Bowling Green's been there, history was made for Penn State. I don't know that we'll have any history like Joe Pa's 200th and 300th wins, but I'm sure we'll enjoy our stay, at least the parts that don't involve the football game. The Falcons hope to come and show strong against Penn State. We'll look forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely, and never know what can happen. I mean, Bowling Green all the time, 9 wins against Big Ten opponents, including a perfect record against Purdue. So anything can happen any given Saturday, but we'll see what happens this week. Thanks again, Todd, and look forward to seeing you.